Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are live. We are in glorious Technicolor, and my Coke is Pepsi. We have quite a bit to talk about today. Top story, as you can likely see from the good old-fashioned thumbnail, from the good old-fashioned title, will be on John Cena's retirement tour and the fact that the WWE still haven't finalised plans for it because they're trying to counter-program AEW. But there is more that we're going to be discussing because isn't there always? Let me move you over here. So, in addition to that, we will be clarifying the situation as regards a potential sale of TNA. This is something that comes up every couple of months, and I essentially repeat what I reported a couple of months ago until it gets through. We will also be talking about Lara Valkyria, Becky and Bayley, particularly what I felt was a very strong tease of Bayley and the Wyatt Six in some form of combination. We're going to be talking about what's going on with Naomi, but to be clear, I do not have any sort of injury update on Naomi directly. What I'm going to be talking about is the Women's Championship. The Women's Championship, not necessarily an update because I don't have one on Naomi. WWE keeping that one very much to themselves. We are going to be talking about the current storyline on Raw, which allows Jey Uso and LA Knight to be in the main event picture without necessarily being World Championship contenders. We are also going to be discussing Dave Meltzer's reporting on John Cena and Brock Lesnar, because, my God, it's weird. Finally, we will be talking about a recent PWInsider report about wrestlers being unhappy about the kayfabe injury from Seth Rollins. I've gone deep into this one and found out a trick WWE are doing in order to weed out a few snitches. Let's say snitches. So quite a bit to cover. We'll be going as long as we have news. If we run out, we basically stop. So be sure to hit like. Be sure to say hi in the chat. I will be trying to answer every question you guys have, so be sure to get your questions in. The show keeps going until you run out of questions. Welcome Bob, John, welcome Aaron as well on the TikTok side. So, the WWE have not yet finalised plans for John Cena's retirement match. They are aware of how many dates he has remaining, and they are in control of his schedule for the month of December. They are holding a specialist singular pay-per-view, or PLE I should say, purely for John Cena's retirement match, and he is largely booking that card himself, meaning that it will involve a lot of ongoing storylines that John Cena personally wants to be involved in. Now, as regards John Cena's final match, there's a lot of different possibilities being listed. The name Seth Rollins continues to come up. WWE have pushed for a potential Brock Lesnar match to be the final match, but I really do feel that John Cena is looking to go out on his back, so it looks like maybe, finally, someone new will get the rub from his list. There is a lot of possibilities there. WWE have not finalised anything. John Cena himself is getting a bit of a mess around, but the intention from the WWE is to use John Cena in a way that directly counter-programs AEW. The WWE's deal with TNA, in fact, the WWE's deal with AAA, and all of the additional PLEs that they've fitted into the calendar are with a couple of intentions. First and foremost, the more tickets they sell, the more money they make. Secondly, they're trying to replace the revenue loss from live events. Pardon me. But in addition to all of this, they are trying to compete directly with AEW. In the meantime, I've got to say, when it comes to AEW, I think they're doing very well at the moment, and a large part of that is that they no longer are actively comparing themselves to the WWE. When they were trying to actively compare themselves, they were losing out. They were losing out badly. I'm glad they've stepped away. AEW have been recovering well, and any attempts to counter-program seem to be going very, very much in AEW's favour outside of those individual occasions. With the return of Brock Lesnar, I am aware that AEW did get a minor spike and are attempting to keep hold of that. But what it's becoming is that whenever the WWE screws up, people flood over to AEW. The problem AEW has, and the problem that AEW has always had, is that they struggle to retain new viewers. If they had a few recaps, everything would be very different. That is our top story on John Cena. Thank you, Bob John, for so many likes on the TikTok side. I appreciate you for it. Aaron says, it's good the Karrion Kross saga has finally been laid to rest. I don't think he will be back. I agree. As I say, TNA, to my knowledge, are the most interested. Bailey says, at some point, are NXT performers at risk if they've been in NXT for 4 or 5 years? There may be a delay in call-ups, but talent like Tony D'Angelo and Wendy Chu seem to be going nowhere. Yeah, so this is one that actually dates back to Ty Dillinger. Ty Dillinger was called up to the main roster because NXT didn't know what else to do with him. And when he was on the main roster, Vince McMahon didn't know what to do with him. Former United States champion, Ty Dillinger, by the way. But they had absolutely no idea what to do with him, so they didn't do anything with him, and he vanished into the ether very quickly. This is one of the reasons that NXT 2.0 occurred, and why the WWE still consider it a major success. When you look at where people like Bron Breakker are now, NXT 2.0 was undoubtedly a great success. But when it comes to WWE, this is why we see so many quiet releases from that part of the company. If people don't make the grade, there is no point keeping them. Hello, Sledgehammer. Welcome, Michael Ishii. Hope you're okay too. I'm doing well myself. Dawn, welcome to the show. Sean says, hello, Tom. Good to see you on a Friday. Welcome. Ishii says, do you see the Wyatt 6 versus MFT feud starting tonight, or do they wait for a bit? It started last week. Declan is still waiting for a WWE draft, unfortunately so. King Azza, we will be talking about Brock versus Cena, or at least a Dave Meltzer report. Personally, what I would say is that a serious bid has come in from Saudi Arabia in the hope of getting that match, so we'll see how it plays out. Eric says, good evening, Tom. How are you doing? Doing well, thank you, Eric. Welcome to the show. What are the plans for Asuka's heel run once she turns heel? Essentially, it would be Asuka taking on Io Sky. There is a lot of play still to have there, but it essentially means Kabuki Warriors will be a heel team, which is something that is desperately needed in the women's tag team division. They are being set up to be the main rivals for Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. They're just not quite there yet. Joey, we will be talking about TNA in just a moment. It's our next piece of news to get to. Aaron says, what's the long-term plan with Ethan and Chelsea? Is it a plan to bring into the main roster? The plan is at the moment, yes, but the plan for everyone on NXT is to take them to the main roster unless for some reason they are incapable of doing so. A lot of things at play. WWE are happy with Ethan Page's work. It's just about getting him into the right spot. That's where the 2.0 element comes in. Sean says, according to PWInsider, Asuka's heel turn was supposed to be a slow burn, but with the Naomi situation, they are moving it forward. This is correct. Io Sky was supposed to continue to work with Naomi for a little longer. Then it would transition, of course, to Stephanie Vaquer. Io Sky at that point would be moving on to Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley would potentially be able to get that win over Io Sky that she's been waiting for. That would have been the Asuka heel turn. And in that moment, we would have then moved on to Io Sky versus Asuka, solidifying the Kabuki Warriors as heels, and then they would move on to face Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. All they've done is take 3 or 4 weeks out of the equation. Hi Marcel, good to see you, mate. Noob says, hello Mr. Colohue, how are you doing? It's another crazy week of wrestling news. Doing good, thanks mate, doing good. And yeah, wrestling news all over the place. Always is. It never goes calm. Never goes calm. Welcome, Ken. Good to see you. Michael says, Wrestling Observer. Sorry, let me just. Based on figures Netflix reported from a variety of places, last week's WWE Raw did 920,000 viewers live and same day. Not great, is it? Not great. Michael says, to continue comparing it with AEW Dynamite last Wednesday, Dynamite would need 209,000 viewers on HBO Max to beat that number, a figure it almost surely beats. I do think a lot of people watch after the fact, particularly internationally, and I would be interested to see, because when you say same day, is that US figures? The WWE don't really care that much about purely US at the minute. So I do think there's a bit of digging needs to be done there, but you do raise a fair point. AEW are continuing to recover and gain ground in the US market. As regards Netflix and what's going on there, I am aware and have reported previously that Netflix have some concerns about the overall viewership drop when it comes to seasonal WWE. Hence, some changes are being made to the cards. Drive-by says, hope you're well. Any updates on Roman at Clash in Paris? At the moment, they're teasing him, but they're also very clearly teasing some very different options. I think it's possible he pops up. I don't think he's looking likely to wrestle still. Ken says, hey Tom, I have to agree about AEW. They're doing some of their best work, and it does seem like every time they're going head-to-head with WWE, they put on their best shows. They do have the talent, they do have some of the storytelling, and they do have a strong creative team now. The involvement of people like Mercedes Moné and Bryan Danielson has also definitely helped. But I think the pressure's off. People like Chris Jericho have learned to shut up a bit more often about the whole demo god business. And it's meaning people are going into the show with less pressure. All they need now is to work on their retention rate, and they should be doing well. Chris says, hi Tom, has Ron Killings gone back to the Truth character permanently? Okay, so I mentioned this at the time, but I want to reiterate. In WWE's eyes, he never left the R-Truth character. In WWE's eyes, he was never Ron Killings. And his insistence on being Ron Killings has caused the WWE to be unsure about how to book him. He's changed character in a way that WWE are not aware of where he's going, so he's being dropped while they work out what to do with him. Joey says, and thank you for sharing this, Joey, Cross has confirmed what you reported, that AEW didn't make a contract offer. Yeah, no offer at this point from AEW for carrying Cross. There are some concerns about his overall presentation, but there are also concerns about anybody now who leaves WWE and starts burning bridges. If Tony Khan gets even the slightest whiff of a CM Punk about you, he runs fast in the opposite direction. One says, Dave Meltzer even reported that the counter booking to AEW All In backfired as they got more people to buy All In instead, 185,000 pay-per-view buys. Certainly with the new PLE deal coming up, there are some better options. Declan says, what are the plans for Stephanie Clash in Paris? We are getting to that. Sean says, I don't want to see Kairi as a heel. She is way too likeable. She's likeable as a heel as well. If you've seen it before, it's a wonderful thing. Bismo, welcome, says, hey Tom, hope you're doing well, having a cherry coke in your honour while watching. Nothing but respect for our Lord and Saviour Cherry Coke. Sean says, the hope internally is that Liv Morgan will return at the beginning of 2026, as long as everything goes according to schedule, via PWInsider. As I've reported previously, the hope internally at the moment is that Liv Morgan is able to return around War Games time, but the WWE are not always confident of writing her into storylines, or anyone into storylines at that point, so they tend to save people for the Royal Rumble. PWInsider there, I believe, are playing it safe, which is not a bad thing. Noob says, I believe that Asuka and Io Sky will most likely be a singles feud. I've mentioned that as well. Cecil says it's possible that Cross possibly worked himself into a shoot with the ex-Loud voice leading him to believe he is worth more than the WWE see him. You are worth what they are willing to pay for you. I'll just say that. Drive-by says, picture this, Survivor Series War Games. Team Roman with Cena, Punk, LA Knight and Jey Uso versus Team Seth, Bron Breakker, Bronson Reed, Drew, and who could be the last man? Logan Paul. He's right there, mate. He's right there. Logan Paul. Pardon me. Declan says, how long do you see Becky holding the Intercontinental Championship? I did see it until Mania. Still can't do. Still kind of see it lasting until Mania, personally. Hector says, happy Friday, Tom. Hope you're doing well. Doing well, thank you, Hector. Welcome to the show. I don't know about you, but this whole WWE trying to counter program seems to be them admitting that AEW is indeed competition, even though in reality they're not. It's odd. Yeah, AEW have stopped punching up, and WWE have started punching down. We are where we are on that one. Joey says, which matches do you expect to clash in Paris that haven't been announced? We seem to be building towards a Becky versus Natalya match. There's also a Becky versus Nikki Bella match. That's an easy one there, though, as I say, WWE have had to do some pivots because Nikki Bella was cut pretty harshly from Happy Gilmore too. Bad Boy says, any new updates of Alexa, Charlotte and the Wyatt? I've shared quite a bit on Alexa and Charlotte's plans earlier in the show. As regards to Wyatt, we will be talking about them and Bayley. Drive-by says, hit the likes. We do have 77 people here. Only the 28 likes. If we can, please remember to hit that thumbs up. We've just got a little boost of additional viewers because people are doing so. So please remember to do so. We are currently, at the moment, live on both YouTube and TikTok. If you want to check out what we're doing on both sides, you are, of course, welcome to do so. Declan says, we need more surprises at the Royal Rumble. Really not Triple H's thing, and it really shows. Hey KJ, how you doing, mate? Says, to add the last person to his Fantasy War Games match, I'd add Brock to Seth's team. I don't think Seth's going to be willing to be on a team with Brock Lesnar. Sean says, Shayna Baszler told Ariel Helwani she had 3 years left on her contract when she was released. She also said she would go to AEW. I'm not sure there's much interest from AEW because of her close relationship with Ronda Rousey. One says, Tony Khan basically doesn't want ex-WWE talent. They'll be desperate to leave to go back and be hypocrites. I like TK's strategy now. He has not ruled out ex-WWE talent. He simply wants ex-WWE talent that will be useful to him. That's the difference. Previously, he was hoovering people up. It made AEW incredibly expensive and non-profitable. That is in the process of changing. It is still not quite changed. KJ says, the complaining about counter-programming is odd. Most AEW fans won't watch AEW, or they say they won't, but it's great. I think you've mistyped somewhere there, KJ. You're saying AEW fans won't watch AEW. Eric says, Becky Lynch needs fresh opponents to make her Intercontinental Championship reign fresh. Indeed she does. And Hector says, it's interesting while also taking shots at WWE in a way that is also complimenting them, saying he wants to work it out and his goal has always been to be in WWE. It's a weird way to do business. Yeah. WWE are aware of it. They don't like it. But there's more on that to come a little later. Stay tuned for an update on the Karrion Kross situation that you might find a little bit surprising. Ishii says, do you think we'll get a Y6 versus MFT interaction tonight? I think the MFT and the Y6 will be on tonight, but there's plenty more still to do with the tag scene before we make that move. Cal, welcome to the show. As always, announcing himself in style, dropping a £2 donation. Thank you very kindly, very generous of you. Says, hope you're well, and what's next for the Wyatt 6? Please remember to hit like on Cal's donation there. We will skip ahead because that's a donation. So we will skip ahead slightly. Once I've done 2 squats, please ignore the pyjama trousers. It's comfy and it's very hot. So, there's a 1 and there's a 2. Thank you very kindly, Cal. So, Wyatt 6. The only update I have at the moment on the Wyatt 6 is, in many ways, speculation, but it is regarding Bayley. Now, the Wyatt 6 at the moment are still working with the SmackDown Tag Division. They're enjoying their work, and there's a number of teams they believe that they are shining a spotlight on by working with them. The next step, the next major step for a Wyatt 6 storyline is Solo Sikoa's version of the Bloodline, or the MFT. That storyline started last week on SmackDown, and we will begin to see some engagement there. I feel that this is an easy win for a War Games match. In addition to that, however, I believe there was a blatant tease in the editing style of the vignette on Raw of Bayley. Bayley losing her way, looking for a new flock, as it were, and looking for some guidance. imagine the concept for a moment, because it's a fun one for me, and I'd love to hear from you guys as to whether you like the idea of Bayley joining the Wyatt Six, at least briefly joining the Wyatt Six. Thank you very much, Hot Tag Wrestling. Appreciate you for that. Centre heart, which means you've joined the fan club, which is a thing that we have over on the TikTok side, which means you get one more squat. Welcome, Hot Tag Wrestling. Okay, so that's the situation as I know it about the Wyatt Six. KJ says, saying Becky needs new opponents as if she didn't just face Maxine. No, she's actively moving on to new opponents. That is what they're saying. Joey says, was Triple H not happy with Cross's promo after Mania? Triple H wasn't really happy with Cross. Sean says, I'm surprised we haven't heard anything about Dakota Kai making any wrestling appearances. To my knowledge, unfortunately, she's still not the most fit and prepared. Declan says, I reckon Sammy is going to win the United States Championship. I would go a little bigger. Sean says, I'd rather Bayley in the Wyatt Six over Alexa. Hector says, I don't know if you're going to mention it in your story, Tom, but have you ever heard of WWE doing what Karen suggested, where they gave him a contract offer and said you have 24 hours, take it or leave it? Yes, a few times. Essentially what that is them saying no. Is them saying yes, but no. It is a simple situation whereby they don't want you, so they offer you an insulting deal. As I say, there actually is still an offer on the table for Karrion Kross. He just doesn't want it. Cal says, I really hope the Bloodline don't take the belt off the Wyatts, but also says he actually likes the idea with Bayley. Ishii thinks it's a good idea as well. Kevin said, Bayley on Raw and Wyatt Six on SmackDown. Yes, but that's never stopped Triple H before. KJ thinks Bayley in the Wyatt Six is a no. Says no offence. Why would there be an offence? It's not how we work, mate. Cal says, are you happy with Liverpool's result today? Well, you were shaking the back, but so good going forwards. Yeah, taking off our fullback and bringing on a defensive midfielder to play there was a bad call. Who knew? Dumb. Also, can I just say, Seaman Yo always scores against us. Yes, Seaman Yo is a player that played against Liverpool today. It's become a meme in my household. It's not going to go away. Welcome, Celia. Bayley says, Bayley's not a good fit for your scenario. Her character is bipolar, not supernatural. To be clear, the Wyatts are not supernatural either. KJ says, Sammy last week and then the MFTs on Raw. LA on Raw. Lots of moving around, as he rightly says. Joey says, do you think Dakota's injury history is why nobody has signed her yet? I think that's part of it. I think also her injury present is why people haven't signed her yet. Ken says, when I heard that laugh, I immediately thought of the Wyatts. I think if they do it, it would be an interesting mix. Not sure if it would be good or bad, but I'm intrigued how it could go. Cecil says, Bayley in the Wyatt Six. Let's go. I mean, Nikki and Bayley versus Alexa and Charlotte would put some interest on the women's tag titles. Cal says, I think WWE were very fortunate SmackDown and Raw fell in Canada. I think we could hear the Let's Go Cross chants. Yeah, to be clear on that, WWE were expecting Let's Go Cross chants and they didn't really hear any. Yeah, considering people keep telling me how massively popular he is, I didn't hear it. KJ, we will be talking about that, don't you worry. Don't you worry, I've got a bit of information there. Yeah, Cal, that explains it, but a lot of players have destroyed your team, Everton, in the last few years, unfortunately. Honestly, I don't want you guys relegated. You're kind of important to our dynamic as well, so it's your year. Eric says Bayley in the Wyatt Six can put her in front of Julia for the United States Championship. Chris says, I'd like to see Bayley struggle with her character, maybe cycling through her previous gimmicks before Uncle Howdy shows Bayley the way. Yes, we have discussed this one, Cal. I also discussed it on Monday, I believe, where it's not quite the date I was given. And Michael says, can't blame Karrion not wanting to sign without the wife. To be clear, if he doesn't want to sign, that is entirely his own prerogative. Nobody has to sign. Also, no company has to offer you a deal. You could have parted ways nicely. You could have parted ways rough. If you feel you're disrespected, by all means, put it out there. We'll see how it goes. Cal says apparently cross signs were taken down by security. Then surely those individuals would be more keen to shout his name. Joey says, do you expect Julia to finally get new opponents? Like she's been wrestling the same people? Yeah, there's a rotation coming in. That's why we saw Julia stepping up to Jade Cargill. KJ says, I'm just curious about the cross situation. Not a fan, but he did get over somewhat. He sold merch too, so I was curious. Kevin says, my opinion, I still believe Karen Cross is working the fans. And Carl says, have you heard anything over Naomi? It's very, very strange. We have an update in the Naomi situation. We don't have an update on Naomi herself. Joey says, wasn't this the same problem a couple of years ago? WWE didn't want Scarlett with Cross when he first got called up. Yeah. It's a lot of money for someone who essentially just works the entrance. Doesn't cut promos. Doesn't really wrestle. WWE weren't interested. In the same way that they weren't interested in Brandy. They just wanted Cody. Interesting. KJ saying the reporting on cross signs was from Dave Meltzer and says it's been debunked by fans in attendance. Interesting. Cal says I think it's right to let Jade go for the US, build her up for the main title, which I think it's inevitable she'll win. She was a very good TBS champion way back when. And Michael says I have a feeling it's concussion related for Naomi. They always hide head injuries. Right. In order to get to what's going on with Naomi, I need to get through what's going on with TNA. I reported this about 6 months ago, but it's come back to the front line once again. So I'm just going to reiterate the situation as it has been. The WWE do not own TNA, and the WWE have not put in any bid to buy TNA. TNA are a separate private entity that the WWE has a working arrangement with. The working arrangement is not ownership. Now, as part of this working arrangement, they do have some options available to them, such as, for example, if TNA was to go up for sale, they have a right of first refusal, essentially meaning they can buy the archive and buy the contracts of wrestlers out. This will allow them essentially to use all footage of AJ Styles if they want to make an AJ Styles video package or things like that. So they have some right of first refusal. That is not the same as buying TNA. TNA, in fact, at the moment, are doing relatively well from themselves and did make considerable bids for the services of names like CM Punk, Will Ospreay, and Mercedes Money. So TNA doesn't need to sell. TNA right now is profitable and doing okay for itself. TNA, as far as I'm aware, are taking advantage of the WWE deal to, one, draw more eyes, but also they're making money from the WWE for the loan out that they're getting. So all these reports of WWE buying TNA, I've heard them month in, month out for the past 6 months. They've never been true. TNA would have to put itself up for sale formally in order for the WWE to make any sort of bid. Alex says, any news on Cross? A little bit still to come. We've talked about Cross a couple of times during the show. You might want to pop over to YouTube and rewind for the full details because I've answered a couple of questions, but the full detail that I have is still incoming, so stick around for that. Talked about that. Next up, we'll be talking about Naomi and Stephanie Vaquer. What have we got in the chat? Not going to answer that one, Kevin. Not my business. KJ says, Tom, was it TKO's choice or Triple H's choice when it comes to contracts? Both. Triple H says who he wants. TKO says how much money they're willing to give them. Basically. Was it cross? Tom, it was a cross sign in the front row all night. If WWE was taking them away, why not take the one that was on camera? Fair play. One says, Meltzer previously reported AEW was desperate to sign Dakota Kai. Now he believes she went back to WWE with Triple H. That could be a reason they aren't that interested in her. Thoughts? I believe that's complete garbage. Ken says, if anyone is interested, Blair Davenport is 3-2, 6 points in the 5-star GP tournament. Might be in danger of being eliminated from the tournament, depending on tonight. Interesting. Daniel, welcome to the show. Cal says Adam Copeland's deal with AEW expires in September. I wonder if we see Edge versus Cena one last time. So, Edge is on John Cena's list. And Edge is interested in that match. Now, AEW were approached and said the same thing they've always said to WWE. If you want to use our wrestlers, that's fine. You take on any medical liability if there's an injury during the match. And you have to mention us. You have to mention he's on loan from AEW. WWE are unwilling to do so. Thank you, Alex, for the heart and the rose. Thank you very kindly for the gifts. Ooh. KJ says, to be fair, people bury the WWE TNA partnership. Slammiversary was TNA's biggest crowd ever, headlined by NXT talent and AJ Styles. Doing pretty well for themselves. Also, just finally on Adam Copeland, given that his contract expires in September, yes, I do believe he will briefly pop back over. But it does depend, because John Cena's running out of dates pretty quickly, and WWE themselves aren't too keen on the concept. Yes, Declan, a little bit on Becky. WWE at this point are firmly moving on from the Becky versus Lara feud. Becky has requested and given a list of her own to the WWE people she wants to work with. Natalia's name is on there, but Natalia is the person who recommended instead Maxine Dupree. Becky Lynch wants to get some spotlight on a number of people. That's why she wanted the championship in the first place. So that is what's going on there. Ken says, say, Tom, do you know if there's any plans for a Roxanne Perez singles title run? Not at this point in time, but there are still things being bounced around. Bailey says, is it just me or is Dave Meltzer becoming more of an apologist over ratings? Brian Alvarez seems more grounded by comparison. They still get the engagement, so they're still going to be talking about them. Ken says, did you see the Chelsea Green was in a Darman video? No idea who that is, to be fair, unfortunately. Thank you again, Alex. Several gifts, a tennis love, a music play, a give it all. There's a lot of interesting options here on the TikTok lineup. I gotta say, there's a lot I'm not aware of. Usually, like, if people give gifts, they'll give roses. That's always a good option. Easy wins there. But yeah, there's some quite unique ones. I've worn a lot of panda hats. Unintentionally every time. But I have worn a lot of panda hats. It's an interesting life I live. Cal says, certain journalists doing victory laps over Cross. Tom reported weeks ago how Cross had been offered a deal. A lot of people will be watching, spoiler warning. I suspect so. Joey says, do you think WWE would bring Copeland back since they brought Brock back for Cena? It wasn't just for Cena that they brought Brock back. That was a difficult one to say. It was, of course, Nick Khan who made the decision. Cal says, do you think Cena's last run has been a disaster? Not really. I think it's been okay. And also says, what do you think is next for Gunter? A well-deserved rest. I suspect he'll get the Brock match at WrestleMania. Kevin, I wouldn't say at this point in time it's easy for a pro wrestler to find another job. Certainly not one to the level in the WWE. It's no doubt that Karrion Kross will have to take a pretty significant pay cut in order to find work going forwards. Bailey says, is Maxine Dupree just not that good, or was she booked that way versus Becky? Monday's match was awkward. It is a combination of things. WWE do not necessarily believe that Maxine Dupree is ready for the spotlight that she was thrust into. But Becky Lynch is eager to put that spotlight on her. Natalya believes she's ready. So, yeah. Okay, Ken, I genuinely thought it was a wrap-up. Cecil, unfortunately, house renovations have taken over a lot of my time. I'm still working on things like that, but you'll notice we're almost exclusively working live videos at this point in time. I do apologise if anyone was keen on more wrestling receipts. I am still intending to get them done. There's just a lot of things in play at once. Interesting, Cal. Joey says, do you think Cross is overvaluing himself with the money he's asking for? I think if Karrion Kross wants to find a new employer, he cannot be asking for the same money he was asking from WWE. That's all I can say about it. So the update on what's going on with Naomi. First and foremost, I don't know what the injury or unavailability is. I don't. WWE have kept that absolutely silent, to the point that I'm not believing anyone who puts anything out there. There is talk at this point of a Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky match at Clash in Paris, replacing what would have been Io Sky versus Naomi and then Stephanie Vaquer versus Naomi. This would allow them to transition the championship to Stephanie Vaquer. This would allow Becky Lynch to continue as she was, still with the Intercontinental Championship. It could potentially be a brief reign and still allow Stephanie Vaquer versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, or they could go the other way, and in fact Vaquer could lose to Becky Lynch at WrestleMania for the championship that she has, instead of what would have been the other way around. Asuka and Kairi Sane are expected to have firmly turned on Io Sky before any match is actually put in place. WWE are clearly trying to reference damage control when they mention that Io Sky used to be a member of a faction with Kairi Sane and Asuka. However, it's desperately ham-fisted because they keep saying that Io Sky used to be one of the Kabuki Warriors, which is not true. So it's very awkwardly involved. But there is a push backstage at the moment for Stephanie Vaquer to beat Io Sky at Clash in Paris and become the new Women's World Champion. There is a strong push for that, which tells me that Naomi is going to be relinquishing this championship. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Oh yeah, absolutely, Cecil. The more I hear that people enjoyed the videos, the more I want to put the effort into them. It's just having the time, unfortunately, at the moment. Cal says, do you think WWE will be hesitant with celebrities? And our Jelly Roll is coming after, but after the whole Travis situation, I can't see it being regular. WWE and Travis Scott came down to The Rock. The Rock wanted to push Travis Scott, no one else wanted to. It failed. Jelly Roll was willing to make a fool of himself in the way that wrestlers sometimes have to. Travis Scott wanted to be celebrated. That's the difference. Kevin says, right now the WWE product feels ice cold. I disagree. I'm still quite enjoying what we're doing. Hopefully, Joey, once again, it depends on my time. Hector says, not sure if you saw clips of the TMZ Hulk Hogan documentary. I did not. Vince's appearance caught my eye over everything. The man looks more plastic than ever. I'm glad I don't have to see that man on my TV. Khalid says, hi Tom, good to see you again, mate. Welcome, Khalid, good to see you. And Angel Lucia, welcome. Says, Tom, is Randy on break? Asking since he's advertised for the 2 SmackDowns in Europe with Cody and Cena. Yes, Randy Orton is taking one of his breaks because he does work a limited date contract. Cal says, it's great seeing Drew have a title shot. He deserves it after the last 2 years he's had. He does, and I feel he'll do very good work with Cody. Khalid says, do you see the Wyatt 6 wrestling at Clash in Paris? No, not at this point in time. Thank you, Declan. Very nice to say. Noob says, Io Sky isn't even part of the Kabuki Warriors. Besides damage control, did more harm to Asuka than good in terms of booking. Eric says, when did the WWE say that Io Sky was a Kabuki Warrior? That was on Monday Night Raw this week. It was Michael Cole who said it. Cal says that the best thing about WWE is the Wyatt 6 at the moment. SmackDown will continue to be your base of operations then. As regards the top story of Monday Night Raw, it is of course built around the current World Heavyweight Champion, Seth Rollins. When Gunther was champion, it was also built around Seth Rollins. When Jey Uso was champion, it was also built around Seth Rollins. WWE considers Seth Rollins to be the top guy on Monday Night Raw, with the top guy on SmackDown being Cody Rhodes. John Cena is now telling his own separate story. You will see that Jey Uso and LA Knight have been in and out of that top picture. They've been involved, but they haven't necessarily ever been a threat. LA Knight is getting the benefit right now of working with names like CM Punk, and CM Punk is said to be willing to give a lot to ensure that LA Knight and Jey Uso maintains the spotlight. It's a good opportunity for both to make themselves shine. So far, LA Knight has given the most benefit from it, because he's absolutely right that Jey Uso remains in Roman Reigns' shadow, which, by the way, is why Roman Reigns is not currently there. Cal says, in your opinion, who'll be seen as last opponent? Again, I'm hoping it's someone brand new. Someone who's never feuded with Cena before and someone who can get that big rub of the green. I'm still going Jacob Fatu. I don't think it will be. I want it to be. Declan says, who's the top woman on Raw? Becky. Bismo says, Michael Cole referred to AJ Styles as AJ Lee as well, I believe 2 weeks ago. What a Freudian slip. Everyone's going to be saying guaranteed now. Cal says, do you think we could see a Nikki or a Howdy match soon? No, Uncle Howdy is not at current wrestling, or in fact listed as an available wrestler, or he wasn't at least when I last checked a couple of weeks ago. Cal would like to see Cena versus Gunther. Dave Meltzer is reporting that John Cena versus Brock Lesnar will happen in either September or October. So roughly any time in the near future before Cena retires then. Wonderful, Dave. Take your victory lap, because I know you're going to. Amazing reporting. So you think the match is going to happen soon? And lastly, and this does refer to Karrion Kross, PWInsider have reported that people backstage in the WWE are angry that they weren't in the know about Seth Rollins and his kayfabe injury going into SummerSlam. Now, I've reported previously LA Knight was fully aware of the situation, but the WWE aren't concerned about LA Knight knowing what's going on. The WWE are concerned with others knowing what's going on. I've chased up on this because I had a hunch. WWE actively told quite a few people that something was going on with Seth. They just told them several different things. I'm told that there were 3 or 4 stories being passed around, and WWE was carefully watching the dirt sheets to see what got out and what didn't. It said that one of the reasons for Karrion Kross and others to be offered a smaller contract, or no contract at all, is because WWE believe that he speaks with journalists. A very small amount of people actually knew what was going on. One of those people leaked it, and the WWE believe they know who. So I'd be keeping an eye on that situation and seeing who drops off the face of the earth in the weeks to come. Cal says, what I like about Gunther is he's that dose of reality. It might be controversial, but I think he's the best wrestler in the world. I don't believe it's that controversial. SNH says, is Brock on the house tonight? I don't believe so, no. Bailey says, was Michael Cole's reference to Candice LeRae as Candice Michelle a slip of the tongue or just a rib? Slip of the tongue, purely accidental. And Joey says, when do you think we see Ilya back? He's not cleared yet, but he's training and he's getting back to full fitness. I cannot put a date on it. I would not expect him to be at this year's WrestleMania. And guys, that's going to be our show. We're going to wrap up there. We've been live for 45 minutes. Yeah, plenty of news, 38 likes, and plenty of people dropping in. We peaked at 86 viewers. We will be back live again on Monday. And don't forget, Clash in Paris. We will be live on YouTube all day. And by all day, I mean the entire show, because for me, it starts at 5 in the afternoon. And what a great day that's going to be. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.